guys, Jay here. Welcome to Eons of Battle. How do you start an army? What does having an army mean? This is something that I've been pondering over as of late. I have a lot of 40k armies. My realist armies are Black Templar, Necrons, Orcs, and now Tyrannid. These are the armies that I could put a list together with and play on the tabletop today. I've got 2,000 points painted, for the most part painted. Probably the Necrons are honestly the most painted, but most of the units are from like 2015. So I don't have a lot of the newer stuff that is probably pretty darn good in game. And I have been pouring my time into my Black Templar. Really, I've been doing nothing else but Black Templar. And I was thinking to myself, why? Like, I have so many armies. Why is it that Black Templar right now are my focus? A big part of it is because I am doing a grand tournament in the very near future, and so I gotta get my Black Templar 2,000 point tournament list up and running. And I've been playing tons of games with my Black Templar, and so that's why I'm super jazzed to work on them. But why aren't these, like, why while I'm painting my Black Templar, I'm not like, well, I really wanna be working on my Tyrannids right now, because really they are my main focus right now. And I was thinking, what makes a real army? And I think that different armies do different things for you. And when you discover those, then it really like unlocks the creative juices and the desire to get them playable, because these are my 4 main armies and they each are very different to me, to paint style, to the way I approach them. My Black Templar are my pride and joy, the jewel of my collection. I spend like minimum 4 hours a guy painting every single grenade and bolter and highlight and freehanding on the most random guys. Like on every other knee pad, I paint a special symbol. That's a lot of work for little tiny guys that leave the table so fast to enemy fire. But I love doing it. I love pouring the work, and all of my best models, except for maybe Gazgul, all of my best models are in my Black Templar army. However, my Necrons were my first army. My first models ever in Warhammer 40,000 in tabletop wargaming were the Necrons. They've been repainted several times since then, but their paint job is incredibly simple. I could add to this army so incredibly fast, because really it's spray paint them white, do a little bit of washing, some orange highlights, some copper highlights, and they are done. Like, this army has been with me for so long, and it's so dusty, because I don't think I've played with these guys in 10th edition. Did I play with them in 9th edition? I think I played them like once in 10th edition, but I definitely played them once in 10th edition, because I remember losing really hard in a 3-player game. Don't play 40k 3-player, it doesn't really work well. One person gets ganged up on, but the Necrons, like, I could whip these guys together, and they're not painted as well as the Black Templar, but that doesn't bother me at all. They look right, they look finished, they look exactly how I would like them to be. Because I was thinking, I worked so hard on my Black Templar to feel satisfied and have models that I think are finished. Like, why doesn't that carry over to Necrons? Because I'm the same person. Why can I do a little bit less work and a little bit less finesse and still have models that I like? And it's because the history and the provenance of my Necron army is just like, every single time I look at this army, I'm like, oh, high school. What, those times? They were the best of times, they were the worst of times, they were most of the worst of times. But then there was 40k and the Necrons, and there was a lot of fun to be had with this army. And then kind of in between collecting Space Marines and Necrons, I collected a whole bunch of Orcs. And the Orcs are completely different to any of my other armies, because this is barely an army. It is a hodgepodge collection of models, weird stuff, alternate sculpt Gazgul, the now Legends Orc Warboss on bike, our Eons of Battles Grot tanks, available at eonsofbattle.com. These guys are super fun. I think I own like 10 bikes, which can come in squads of 3 or 6, so not even the correct number. I actually commission painted an Eldar army in exchange for Orc Warbikers. I got like 7 boxes of Orc Warbikers because I just saw Mad Max and I'm like, I need an Orc Warbiker army. And this will be the Orc Warbiker army. Orc Warbiker is not looking super crazy hot in 10th edition, but I think I can make it work if I just utterly spam them. If I take as many as I'm allowed to take. But the Orc army is really different because unlike my Necrons, which are just a couple of colors, my Orcs I've splashed out so hard on some units, but some units are just kind of finished. And I love them all the same. And then the new kids on the block, the Tyranids. I got Leviathan, the new box for Warhammer 40,000 10th edition, and so now I am a Tyranid player. But I don't know how to be yet. I've painted all of the Leviathan minis and a smattering of other stuff, some Zoanthropes, some Venomthropes, the Tyrannofex, the Hive Tyrant, but I don't know how to expand it out from there. Orcs, Necrons, Space Marines, I know like the back of my hand, but Tyranids, I don't know them that well. I don't know, do I want to do like a Ravener popping up on the board army? Do I want to do a big bugs never tire? Do I want to do endless swarms? Like, I don't know that much about this army. And I think a little bit of the newness is what gets me excited about this force. And this force is also painted very differently. A little bit similar to the Necrons. These guys are mostly contrast paint, a little bit of highlights here and there. But overall, all of these armies are incredibly different, but they all satisfy different urges for me. And it helps that they're just literally different armies. Like if I collected 4 different colors of the same Space Marines, I think I would probably, if I collected 4 Space Marine armies, they would all have to be painted as good as my Black Templars, even if it was like Black Templar, Imperial Fists, something else, some White Scars. Then they would all have to be painted exactly as good as my Space Marines. But if I collected more colors of Necrons, I think they would all be painted as well as my original Necron army. For Orcs, there's no colors of Orcs. I mean, there are, but I would just expand out into the most massive collection of boys because the vibe of Orcs is just an endless green horde. Oh, what is that famous? I think, is it Vect? It's somebody really important to the Eldar once said, like, why do we think we're superior to the Orcs? They have conquered the universe. They have a civilization that knows no worry, no stress. They are the pinnacle of civilization, and who are we to judge them? Because the Orcs, they like war. They like conflict. They don't like civilization and being reasonable. They like craziness. And so that's like, when like that vibe translates so well to the minis. And for me, it's translated so well to collecting the models because I don't even look at the rules when it comes to the Orcs. I have a weird boy on my desk right now that I've not been painting up, but I should, because I like the weird boy is so much fun. He's so weird. He's so wacky. And so that's like the excitement that comes from the Orcs. And then the Tyranid are a little bit of like a mystery. What are the Tyranid? How do they play on the tabletop? I've played them, I don't know, maybe 5 times, lost all 5 times. And it's with the Leviathan model, so I didn't get a really good snapshot of how the game is played. It was really interesting, and the mystery over here is kind of what interests me in this army. And so when you go about collecting your army, I wonder what do you get out of each force? Because I get something so unique and so special out of all of these guys. And I have other armies. I have Death Guard, I have a giant box of Grey Knights, I've got Genestealer cults, and those armies, they don't interest me. They don't get the juices flowing like these armies do. And the reason is because they don't have a vibe yet for me. I have some Genestealer cult models that I've tried incredibly hard on, and I have a bunch of Genestealer models that I just kind of got done. And there's like conflict in my brain of like, well, how should they be painted? How do I want them to be painted? And that conflict keeps them away from the painting desk. It keeps them away from the gaming tables. And I wonder, how do you make sure that that doesn't happen? Because the way everybody picks an army is you pick the ones you think look cool. And that coolness can take you a long way in your collection. But hopefully you don't realize eventually that you're like, I do not like the Necrons. I don't like their vibe. I don't like their lore. I don't like their play style. And so maybe that army gets eBayed. Maybe that army gets sold. Maybe that army just gets shelved and it's holed out for other editions that maybe change things up. These armies, these are my real 40k armies. Genestealer cults. I wanna like Genestealer cult, although less now because now I have a Tyranid army and I feel like Tyranid scratches that kind of bug itch. Also, Warhammer 40,000 hot take. The Necrons are the Warhammer 40k's alien faction and the Tyranid are the robot faction. I have spoken. Also, nobody should have a ton of armies. It is impractical, ludicrous. There's only so much time in the day. Even if I wanted to work on every single army every single day, it's impossible. Like, models take so long to paint. 4 hours of Black Templar, and I've got 15 on the painting desk right now that I have to get done in the next 2 weeks. It is a challenge. But if I was bringing my Necrons, I could probably get that done lickety split. My orcs will always exist kind of spread out around my house in various stages of partially built, partially finished. I'm doing like a Mad Max theme, so everything is kind of bare rusty metal, and I keep learning new ways to do bare rusty metal. And so throughout my army, there's like a few different hues of rusty metal because I keep learning how to do it a little bit better or a little bit differently. But you know what? Rusty metal, it all kind of works. It's the orcs. It's the orcs. You don't have to have it all perfect and proper. Some orcs maybe clean their stuff a little bit better. Some orcs don't mind a little bit of extra rust. Some orcs wear tattoos. Some orcs don't. Like, whatever you do with the orcs, you're right. And that is that's why everyone loves the orcs. It's impossible not to talk about the orcs without a giant smile on your face. And that is what I love about this army. And the Tyranid are an interesting mystery. Don't know what I'm gonna do with them yet. Maybe I have to play them a little bit in TTS and try out some units. I have a big box of secondhand models that I bought just because they were a really, really good deal. And I thought, well, Raveners are probably good. Gargoyles are probably good. Actually, gargoyles are really good, but I don't know if I want a bunch of gargoyles. They're not like, they have a really big problem, a monkey in a barrel. When you pick up one gargoyle and their big old wings, you pick up 4 of them and then one of them falls off of the just monkey in a barrel. It's a little bit of a pain in the butt, but it's a pain in the butt that I'm here for. Where my Grey Knights, they're in a box like over there-ish somewhere. I haven't seen them. I think I saw them twice this year because I was looking for something. And I've added to them a little bit. I got some secondhand Grey Knight Terminators, or not Grey Knight Terminator, or Grey Knight Librarians. And do that army one day, maybe, I don't know. My Death Guard, I've painted some Death Guard this year. I painted Mortarion this year. And every time I do it, I get a little extra hobby gusto. But then that quickly dissipates when I tackle something from one of these armies, my real armies. And so I think when you're collecting an army, you really need to think about why you're collecting it, what makes you happy, and to not go nuts. Like my Necrons, I like them so much. I tried really hard on my heroes, but other than that, I do not really care what they look like. Because every single time I move my Necrons around the battlefield, I'm back in high school, but like the good part of high school. Not, I'm not doing my homework and instead I'm playing Warhammer 40K. Those are the good memories. My orcs, my brain goes back to the fun I've had on the painting desk, literally splashing texture paste and pigment powder onto the models. My Tyranids driving all the way to Timbuktu to get a copy of Leviathan because Games Workshop didn't send us one. We bought it. But it was really, really fun to get that home and to spend an entire week painting them up and then getting to use some of these models. Back in high school days, a friend of mine did have the Tyranids, and so I got like some secondhand exposure to the Tyranid. And so now it's like, oh, this is what he was doing. This is what he was working on when I get to experience these models for the first time for me. And so now that I sit here, I am loving these models even more. And like Grey Knights and Death Guard and my Genestealer cult are like, the boxes are almost scooching further away from me. If anyone's in the market for some Genestealer cult, no, not yet, but close. I'm close to eBaying them. Let me know in the comments below, have you ever really thought about your armies? Do you not have multiple armies, but instead have multiple games? That's probably much healthier than having multiple armies for the same exact game. It's probably not a bad idea to have 2 so that one of them can be a loner army. But like, what gets you excited to sit down at the hobby desk? What keeps you going? Because the logic of the 40K army is that it's ever expanding. You can always add more units. You can always max out on units. Like there's always something to add, another something to do for the army. But like, do you guys have any closet armies that haven't, seen the light of day in years and years and years? What are those armies and what do they mean to you? Because the army that's sitting in your closet is somebody else's jam. And like, what's the difference? What's the difference in you? What's the difference in the army? What's the difference in the game? I would love to know. And I would also love to tell you about EonsOfBattle.com. EonsOfBattle.com is the place to find our merch, like the new Nick and J dice, and the best way to support us doing what we do with a membership. Each month, members will get a credit that they can use on our new monthly terrain pack or any previous pack we have ever made. For the month of September, we here at Eons Battle are proud to announce the Whimsical Cottages. Fantasy buildings perfect for a game with a ye olde flair. Move your models around the quaint homes, the roomy houses, or set up shop in the tavern. With this terrain, you can make an entire town complete with pumpkins, giant mushrooms, and trees to really fill out a game board. For me and my hobby for the next 2 weeks, it is going to be all Black Templar Space Marines all the time, don't even ask. But after that, it'll almost certainly be one of these 3 other armies. The Orcs are calling to me. The Orcs are calling to me hard. And I have a playable army, I could play them today. But now I'm thinking like, well, but to really get the most out of these bikes, I probably want some Storm Boys, maybe even some Death Coptas. I'm in the process of buying all the Nick's Death Coptas, and might be doing a real fast Orc army, but who knows? Thanks for watching.